Welcome to the Ben and Lauren Show. I'm Ben, and this is Lauren, and it's Saturday night. Here we are again.
The mics are on this week.
Yes, can you hear
tell
us?
by the feedback.
Can you hear the snap? How do they do that?
I don't know. I've never seen that before.
Wait, we snack your neck like that?
I've never seen that.
I can't quite do it right. Okay, it's a pen.
We don't rehearse exactly how we're going to do these podcasts, but we have learned that if we don't make ourselves a list with some notes, then we really tend to wander around, and then we get done, we're like, we didn't talk about half the stuff we talked about ahead of time.
And I know we look totally unscripted and totally organic and totally smooth, but we have notes. So if you see us glancing down every so often, that's why.
It's like, oh yeah, we were going to talk about that.
So, what did we do this week, Lauren?
Well, whatever we planned to do this week, none of it worked quite the way we were planning.
Yeah, we had quite a list of things we wanted to get done, and just nothing seemed to go according to plan.
Well, I think it started with you were supposed to have a bunch of meetings this week and phone calls, and a bunch of stuff was scheduled, and it kept getting either called off or rescheduled. And
then we had a midwife visit that we had set up for Thursday and ended up turning out it was Friday.
Hey, there was just it felt like not a single thing we were expecting to do this week happened at the time we were expecting.
And it throws off our plans, you know?
Right.
But I'm used to living a life, for a good period of my life, it was very spontaneous. There was not a lot of time restraints or restrictions. If I wanted to just go do something, I could just go do something. But we live in a lot more of a planned household. You have to be. When you have family members, things have to be at least semi-planned.
Well, what happens is there's a few things that go on. We cook all our own meals, for instance. So we're not really set up to get convenience food. No. And we're not really set up to go out to eat a lot because that would be really hard on our budget.
That's actually kind of a treat for us.
Yeah, it's unusual. So if we do something spontaneous, we really need to pay attention to meals. Mm-hmm. And we have these 4 little kids who, if you don't pay attention to meals, they get very hungry and they're not good at skipping meals or grabbing something for themselves. You really got to sit them down and feed them.
And we're not big on snacks. We'll do snacks like in the evening time, but we don't do a lot of snacks during the day.
We don't really have a lot of stuff around to have them snack on.
Oh, there's fruit. A lot of times we'll eat fruit.
There is, but you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
As you noted from Elena.
Oh, yeah. What was it, plums?
Plums. She wanted to indulge in as many plums as she wanted to eat because we got them from farmer's market. I held her back to 2, and that was probably a good thing.
If she had her way, she'd eat a lot more plums than 2.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, she found out what happened when she eats half a carton of raisins.
Oh.
That was epic.
Yeah.
Anyway, can't have them snack on fruit too much.
No. So this week has been a little bit off kilter.
We had a lot of things that we were expecting to do that we didn't do, and then we did them at different times, and it ended up a little strange.
Well, one of the things also, we try to do things together.
Yes.
So if I get an idea that we want to go do something spontaneously, it can kind of mess up with a schedule, especially if I say we're going to do something spontaneously and it doesn't actually go into motion until several hours later. That could really mess up.
That really can mess things up. That was one of the things that happened. At one point, you wanted to take cans back to the store.
Kind of late in the late morning, cans. I just had to make a declaration. I want to go to the grocery store and return all of our cans. And Lauren's like, okay, that sounds good. And I said, okay, after lunch, we'll go do that. Well, after lunch really means after lunch, meaning you eat lunch and then you go. But after lunch could also mean afternoon.
See, when he says after lunch, I'm thinking 1 o'clock. Which, at the time I said, okay, so if we go around 1, then the kids will be done with their schoolwork, and we'll be done with lunch, and Daniel can handle that. We can get him back home plenty of time for him to take his normal nap. Mm-hmm. Well, then it got later and later, and Ben had an order or something to do, and it was getting very late. And I had not planned dinner to be in a big hurry because I figured we'd be back from the store. And we had this situation with these 2 monarch caterpillars
Oh, yeah.
that we had picked up. That happened on Monday. We went to the park with 5 swallowtails to release, and we came back with 2 monarch caterpillars.
We saw the one monarch caterpillar, and we said, maybe we should take this home. And I kind of made the executive decision, oh, yeah, we should definitely take it
Another
home.
spontaneous thing. And I'm like, but we don't grow milkweed in our yard. That's the only thing they'll eat.
So we took a few leaves of milkweed with us.
And I'm
A
like-
few leaves.
I'm like, okay, these guys are almost ready to go into chrysalis. They're huge.
But then we found another one.
And I'm like, we don't have enough milkweed. And Ben says, nah, we have plenty. And I'm like, I don't think we have enough to feed these.
I grabbed a couple extra leaves. I figured they'd be fine.
So by this day that we were going to return the cans, that was Monday. By Wednesday, they had gone through everything we had, and they were roaming around in the jar looking for more food.
They were
They said,
starving.
we got to go back to the park and grab some more milkweed leaves. And so we were planning to go
After dinner.
Well, originally I had planned to go right after lunch. I was going to go to the park with the kids because we'd been on Monday and they wanted to play on the place.
And that's the day I had the 1 o'clock Skype meeting, but that got
It
canceled.
fell through. So you said, well, instead of that, I'd like to go to Value Center and take the cans back. And I said, okay, well, we still need to get milkweed for the caterpillars. Maybe we can do that after dinner.
So we never got the milkweed during the day.
We did not because it got later and later and later. And we were expecting to go after dinner, but by getting late, it messed up dinner.
Because dinner got late.
So dinner got late. And so now it's starting to get dark. And I'm like, if we do not feed these little caterpillars we picked up, they're going to starve to death. We actually have to go get milkweed.
So that was Wednesday night, right?
Right.
We had our milkweed crisis situation.
So then we had to do a great milkweed hunt.
So after dinner, this is before we even cleaned up from dinner, it's starting to get dark outside.
And it's getting ready to rain.
We get out in the car and we just drive out. We say, we're going to find some milkweed. So we drive down some of the main roads where it gets kind of swampy. No milkweed.
We were looking for spots where we knew milkweed should grow. And we could not see any. We could see lots of Queen Anne's lace. We could see lots and lots of all different kinds of weeds, but no milkweed. It's like, well, how hard could this be to find? Milkweed grows everywhere.
No, it doesn't.
So we stopped and we walked along the bike path for a bit in a big hurry. Nothing. We finally resorted to the parking lot of the place where Ben used to work. We knew every summer we had seen milkweed
Which
there.
was about a 10-minute drive to get there. Then 10-minute drive back.
And finally, as it was getting dark, we said, well, we know if we go to this parking lot, we can at least use the headlights, and there should be milkweed growing there. We got there, and the spot where it had always been growing, there was nothing.
We thought, this is a dud. We're in trouble.
We drove slowly around the parking lot. We looked all around the perimeter and all the way over on the other side.
Some milkweed that they hadn't killed yet.
We found some milkweed that they hadn't weed whacked.
Absolutely covered with aphids.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we squished all the aphids with our thumb and
Got a towel out of the car. We cleaned all the aphids off so we wouldn't have aphids all over.
we kind of washed them down.
I washed them because there was that sticky honeydew stuff from the maple, or from the aphids all over the leaves.
When we got back.
So we got back, and I put leaves in the jar. I put 1 leaf in that day. I put 1 leaf in the next morning, and wouldn't you know it, they started going into their chrysalis shape the next morning.
In other words, we didn't need all that milkweed. Had we just had a couple extra milkweed from the park, we would have been
picked
fine.
up 2 more leaves, we would have been fine. We picked up a lot more. But then, of course, we researched milkweed, and we learned, oh, yeah, it's a latex derivative. My brother-in-law better never touch it.
No. Nope.
I will advise my sister, don't ever raise monarchs.
It's also poisonous. Very poisonous.
Yeah, milkweed is quite poisonous. A lot of alkaloids in it.
So, adventures in milkweed.
So we learned about milkweed this week. We learned that it does grow. And actually, when we were driving today, had we driven down 16 Mile a little further, I saw some big ones. We would have found some. But it's not as prevalent as I thought it was.
No, we figured we'd just find it in the drainage ditches all over the place.
Weedy spots. But no, it's harder to find than that.
It's not real common in Michigan, I don't think.
So, well, it might be, but just not right here.
So we did have another big accomplishment 1 week ago. Last Sunday, I finished the mulch pile.
The mulch pile is all around the yard.
That was
now.
a very satisfying feeling when you scoop up the last of that giant pile. Now, when that giant thing was dumped down, I gave myself 2 months. I said, this is going to take 2 months, just every so often going out there, shoveling it out. Because I know me well enough that rather than just focusing on the mulch pile, I'm going to be focusing on the mulch pile and weeding and garden and this and that and all these other things.
Yeah, Ben never just puts mulch down. He usually wants to weed everything. And
I see weeds and I can't resist just, all right, I'm going to get this patch right here and get this patch right here.
I guess that explains the big bald patches in the lawn. You've been pulling the creeping Charlie.
We have a creeping Charlie problem in our backyard, unfortunately, so.
Yes, we know it's edible. It's not all that tasty.
It tastes awful.
And it takes over everything. Grows up the trellises.
I'm not a fan of creeping Charlie.
Well, I doubt we're ever going to eradicate all of it, so if we're ever starving, we can let it take back over.
Okay. So, yeah, sometimes I'll get patches of creeping Charlie out of our grass, whatever is remaining of the grass. But the main thing is I got the mulch done.
Got the mulch down.
And that means on to the next project, which is the other fence on the other side. And that just starts with digging holes, digging
Probably going to start that tomorrow.
Yep. So we got our Sunday and Monday, since Monday's Labor Day. I'm going to labor on a fence.
Well, I think you've got a good chance of getting it done. We need one more post.
Now, last week I said Sunday we're going to finish the mulch pile, and I finished the mulch pile.
That's true.
So today I'm saying I'm going to start the fence, so I'm going to start the fence.
The weather is very nice, too. It's no longer really, really hot, so it should be much more pleasant working on it.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I don't think it's as packed down on that side.
I doubt you'll have all the tree root issues either.
And tree roots. The side that we did initially, it was very hard to dig the holes. There was tree roots, there was concrete, the dirt was really packed down. That's where all the equipment was driving back and forth.
To do our addition.
For the addition. On the other side, it's undisturbed dirt, so I think it's going to be a lot easier to dig.
Well, let's see how it goes.
Hopefully.
Guess you'll find out tomorrow.
Maybe I spoke too soon.
Maybe.
So what else? My mom's back from Florida.
We think she got a sinus infection from traveling on the airplane while her sinuses were having some trouble.
So it's been a week since she's gotten back.
Yeah, we couldn't tell at first if she had a cold, if it was something that was communicable.
Well, she came back Friday, so when we did the Ben and Lauren show, Thursday night.
She was back.
Yeah.
Anyway, she hasn't really been feeling that well this week, and the kids have been kind of waiting to go visit her. And I realized that because we live next door, I would go 2 weeks without seeing my grandparents quite frequently when I was a kid. But to our children, not seeing Nana for a day is strange. Not seeing her for a couple of weeks, they're like sneaking over to the edge of the patio to make sure they can say hi to Nana.
And when she's gone, it's a little bit...
It's very strange to them. Yeah.
They're used to having Nana be home.
She's a constant to them, both Nana and Papa.
So it's more than just a neighbor. I mean, it's family.
Well, Daniel's vocabulary has exploded this week, and some of the prominent words that he suddenly is saying are Nana, Papa.
Nana, Papa.
He stands at the window, he sees Papa, he goes, Papa! Nana, Papa!
Now his vocabulary is just all over the place now.
Yeah, about a week ago was when he stood next to the bed and he looks at me for the first time and he goes, Wow, Mama. And he's never said anything for my name before. Now he calls me constantly, Mama, Mama. He did it the other day in the car and Ben thought it was Elena.
Yeah. Well, today he had a green sucker and he holds it up and he shows it to me. He says, green. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, he just decided to talk all of a sudden.
He also pretends he knows his numbers. The girls will all count 1, 2, 3, and he'll count 2.
He counts 2. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2.
You gotta start somewhere.
9.
Oh, there you go.
He likes 8 and 9, but he gets stuck on 2.
1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 8, 9.
Right. So anyway, he did spend a lot of time looking for Nana this week. He kept disappearing over the patio and checking in the door wall to see if she was there.
Managed to get the lawn mowed this week. I've gotten in the habit of mowing the lawn on Thursdays. It used to be mowing the lawn on Fridays, but now I've moved it to Thursdays.
You can tell we have a pretty quiet life.
Yeah, I know. This is on the list of exciting things. We mowed the lawn this week.
I did not get the laundry done this week, but I did get the giant ironing pile finished.
That's good.
See?
We do live an exciting life.
Very, very exciting life we have.
I saw a car fire today. No, not today. Yesterday.
Was that Friday?
It was Friday.
That was yesterday.
Yesterday. I saw a car fire.
What was funny was he was in Detroit when he saw the car fire.
In Detroit.
Nobody else seemed to be thinking much of it.
So we had a business meeting on Friday, which we try not to do business meetings and things on Fridays. That's when we get ready for Shabbat.
Preparing for Sabbath takes up the day.
But we had a lunch meeting, and it went very long. We stayed there for about 2 hours, so that's a long time to stay at a restaurant. I could tell the wait staff was kind of not pushing us out, but giving us the hints that you've been here a while. But right as soon as we got out of the restaurant, we looked down the street. Actually, one of our people we were meeting with says, "Whoa, what was that?" So I look behind me, and I see the flames, and I see the dark black smoke going up right in the middle of the street. And I'm thinking, this is like a scene out of a movie. There was a part of me that wanted to be the investigative journalist in that moment and just run to the scene and grab my camera and start filming everything. But,
They don't need you to do that.
Yeah, and don't act suspiciously around a car fire,
Really. Although I have a feeling that people running around with their phones videotaping it, it's not suspicious anymore.
Now, what I noticed is how many people pretty much ignored it, like it was not even a big deal. I mean, there was a couple people standing around looking at it, asking questions, but it's like another day in Detroit, Well,
I learned when I was young. We had a neighbor that came from inner city Detroit, and at one point, his car, he would always park his car in front of our house instead of his house. We never could figure out why. One morning at 2:00 in the morning, my sister and I woke up to this giant, there's fire trucks and all kinds of stuff going on, and his car was on fire in front of our house. And that's when we learned that it's not that uncommon for people who don't like each other from Detroit to make sure they set each other's cars on fire.
Not with the people in it.
No, they just burn the car down.
I don't know if there was anyone. Hopefully there was no one in it. That'd be awful. I did see them with the axe trying to get the car open, get the trunk open.
I think when they open the car up like that, they do that not only to check, but it helps them put the fire out. They can actually get, fire retardant inside the car.
It was an interesting sound. I've never heard the sound of an axe whacking a car. I mean, the metal on metal sound. And we were not close. We were about a block away, and you can hear it, really clearly. It must have made a lot of noise.
You would think a car fire is a small fire, but it really isn't. It's pretty huge.
And the black smoke, you could just see this big plume of black smoke.
You got rubber and
it stinks.
Gasoline.
Smells so bad.
It's bad.
Anyway, we were talking about mowing the lawn and laundry. I figured I'd put a little more.
Do something a little more exciting.
Car fire! Boom!
Just toss that in there.
So, okay, what else? Daniel had a little accident. We got another exciting story.
He was playing with a badminton racket, and he had his back to me, and all of a sudden he made this squeal, and he came running over to me, and he has blood everywhere. He jammed, I don't know how he did it. He jammed the racket in his mouth under his tongue. And Daniel was born...
You didn't even actually see it happen.
His back was to me. I couldn't.
And I was not in the room. I heard the scream.
So Daniel was born with a slight tongue tie and a lip tie. And at this point, he has now severed both of them successfully himself. And this week, it was the tongue tie.
Well, that's good, because then we don't have to have surgery.
He didn't need surgery. In the meantime, when Daniel has anything going on that he doesn't like, or he's distracted, or something hurts, he quits eating.
And he does not like problems with his mouth or nose.
Yes.
It really bothers him.
So he decided he'd not eat for 2 days, and I knew that was not good for him. So I spent 2 days this week trying to get him to eat.
He hasn't lost any weight or anything.
Well, I don't know. I haven't weighed him.
He doesn't look skinny anyway.
He looks fine.
Yeah.
He'll be okay. He started eating again. I knew he was fine when he started eating popcorn the other night.
He's not starving.
So Daniel did surgery on himself the hard way this week. That boy.
Yeah.
And he also, he's been in his new bed for a little over a week, and he kept getting up all night and bothering me for 2 or 3 nights. He was pestering me constantly. So finally, Ben started taking him back to bed. And when Daddy takes him back to bed, he stays in bed.
Totally new scenario.
Apparently, Mama is not firm enough about putting him back
I
in bed.
don't do anything. I just walk him back to bed, and he knows that Daddy means it.
It's bedtime, yeah. Well, whatever the case, the last 2 nights I've gotten much better sleep than I did the 3 or 4 nights before that.
Well, good.
I
Now, he got up
appreciate it.
last night, but you put him back in bed.
Well, he had just started to get out of bed. I think he got tangled up in his blankets or something, and I basically just boosted him back into his bed and said goodnight. He
You
didn't
heard him
actually,
crying.
yeah, he didn't actually get to our room last
Okay.
night.
Good.
So, anyway, anything else? We had a midwife appointment this week. It's 34-week appointment.
Yep.
So now we get to start doing every 2-week appointments. That's exciting. It means we're almost done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she gave me a little bit of a scare. She's feeling for the baby's head. She goes, this head is very small. I'm like,
What does that mean?
what's that supposed to mean? All our kids have small heads. But then we realized kind of at the same time that this baby is facing forward, which is a little bit of an unusual position for babies.
So they're feeling your forehead.
Usually to either side. Babies lay with their back to one side or the other, or their back to the outside. This baby, the whole time we've suspected, was going to be what's called a posterior baby, which is where the baby's spine is against the mother's spine. It's a little
Hopefully
bit of
the baby will turn around.
It seems unlikely. I think the positioning of how this particular baby is formed, where the placenta has formed, they face it. And this one is in front. It's always been a problem getting this baby's heartbeat because the placenta's in the way.
Would it be feet first then? Or head first?
No, head first, but facing.
Face up.
Normally, when a baby is born, they are with their head either to the side, but typically facing the back toward the mother's spine.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how a baby's head gets the best purchase, and that's how it's easiest for a baby to be born that way. If you have what's called a posterior birth, it's where the baby is facing forwards, even though they're head down. They're not breech. And that's when you get back labor. The contractions are stronger across your back than across your front. And I have had one posterior baby, and that was Elena.
Elena was posterior.
And I kind of was hoping to never do a posterior labor again. That was not fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing Elena's face right when she came out.
It's unusual to have the baby born face up. Usually you have the baby born with the face down,
It's
and then they rotate as
kind
they're
of
being
a
born.
permanent image in my mind.
Of Elena with her face up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not... And I've even... It's one of the excuses people have used for why you need to do a C-section. Oh, it was a posterior baby, so it was a very difficult pushing position.
No,
Like, well, maybe a difficult pushing position, but delivering by C-section is pretty rough.
now Elena was our only left-handed baby. Of course,
I don't think she's left-handed.
she's actually right-handed now.
She may be ambidextrous. She uses both her hands pretty...
She started off with her left, and now she's using her right, so maybe she can use both hands.
Could be she could use both. But whatever the case... so when the midwife felt the baby this time...
I thought maybe backwards birth, backwards writing.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, so when the midwife felt the baby's head this week, she's like, this head's really small. And then we realized, as she was trying to get the baby's heartbeat, that the baby was facing forward. So what she was feeling was this
right in
part
the
of the
front.
baby's forehead. And normally when you judge the baby's skull size, you feel this part of their head. So you feel the length from the forehead to the back of the head, which is way longer than that little tiny forehead. And our kids all have little narrow foreheads too.
Right.
So,
And another interesting thing, the heartbeat was kind of slow.
yeah, heartbeat was a little slow. That's also a sign of a posterior baby. They're
No,
laying
it's also
right...
the sign of possibly a boy.
Possibly. We'll see. You look at every sign and think it might be a boy. It's also a sign of a posterior baby when the mother's lying on her back because the baby is actually compressing the superior vena
alright,
cava and
yeah.
getting less oxygen.
Okay, it's a boy. Daniel's going to have a brother.
So confident you are.
And if it's a girl, I'll be happy. I'll be happy to be wrong, as long as it's a healthy baby. But it's a boy.
I'll be happy even if it's not a healthy baby.
I'll be happy if we have... Well, I'll be happy whatever situation God gives us.
That's important.
And that's an important thing.
I've
The
learned
important
that
thing is to be happy.
my youngest brother has Down syndrome. And my third sister died of another genetic complication. So my mother had 2 babies with genetic abnormalities. And when she was expecting my brother, we knew early on that he had some trouble, but it was difficult to tell what without doing some pretty extensive testing. And people would ask her stuff about the baby, and then they would make the comment everyone makes, well, as long as the baby's healthy. And we all realized, so what if the baby's not healthy?
Then what?
Are we all going to be unhappy and send the baby back?
No.
Now what do you do? So I do not ever say, as long as it's healthy.
Well, we are hoping for a healthy baby, though.
I do hope for a healthy baby, but I don't say, I'll be happy as long as the baby's healthy. It's like, well, what if the baby isn't? What are you going to do then? Be in the depths of despair? What are we going to do?
And if there's a couple extra fingers and toes, we'll deal with that.
According to some people, that means that
Oh,
we
yeah.
have...
Nephilim blood in us. I don't know about that.
I have no idea.
We had an interesting day today. Normally we go to sort of a church for Bible study, and we do praise and worship and prayer and things like that. But today was a barbecue. I think it's for Labor Day weekend. So we went over to friends of ours and had a good time. I thought we had a good time.
It was a really nice afternoon.
The weather was beautiful, and we had some good food, good fellowship.
Had a nice Bible discussion.
Yeah, good Bible study. We went on a walk with the girls.
Yeah, you took the girls. They have a little forest preserve right by their house, across the street. And I think our girls have reached the age where they probably would really enjoy hiking.
Yeah.
Or at least short distance hikes.
Yep. They got their imagination going.
They have become, this summer, the 3 older girls have become extremely
Adventurous?
interested in anything they can get their hands on to look at.
They
Everything is exciting.
they were a little bit worried about animals, and I said, "Don't worry, your dad will take care of them."
They know bugs now, but they're not familiar with animals.
So your dad will take care of them. And then Abigail reminded everybody that Samson killed a lion with his bare hands.
She did.
She did. She said that he took one side of his jaw and the other side of his jaw and opened it up until he died.
Well, that is what he did, but oh my goodness.
Apparently, according to Abigail, I have the strength of Samson, and if a lion attacks us, I'll just grab his jaw and open it up until he dies.
Well, you remember that David had killed lions and bears.
Oh, yeah.
As a younger man.
I should have brought my slingshot.
And I'll do it to this heathen Philistine, too.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Yep.
So I didn't. I told them one problem. I forgot to bring my knife.
That's okay.
So
you can barehandedly take the one side of the lion's jaw.
That's right. And just open it up till it's dead.
Oh, that's actually really gross.
So anyway.
You didn't tell me about that part.
Our sheltered children. We don't let them watch rated R movies, but they listen to the Bible.
They listen to the Bible. It plays constantly in their bedroom.
I hope there's certain words that they don't repeat from the Bible.
Well,
like phrases and certain things.
They may repeat them.
But do they understand them?
Do they know what they mean, and is it so terrible if they do?
Not really.
There's going to be things they're going to learn from the Bible that we may not have necessarily been ready to teach them, but on the same... There's worse ways to learn those things.
Yeah, I suppose there is. One unexpected gift that we got was this wonderful back scratcher. See, isn't that wonderful? It's got a hook on one end and a hook on the other, and you can just put it right back here. Oh, yeah, that's nice.
It's not a back scratcher.
What? Of course it is.
This is for hanging plants on.
That was a back scratcher. Okay, yeah, I see it's a hook. You hook it on one side and you hook it on the other. This is actually a giant piece of copper wire, big, thick.
Our friend Alan made this. It was his house, his and his wife's that we visited today. And he's an electrician, and he realized that he could take heavy-duty grounding wire, and build these really nice plant hooks out of it. And he had several different styles that he made that were really pretty. And he said, "Oh, here, I wanted to offer you one if you wanted one." I'm like, "Oh, sure." Absolutely.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, the copper is just so cool.
It is really pretty. All the copper left over from our house, from our electrical work, is out in the garden holding trellises together. I stripped all the insulation off it. It bends really nicely. It works to wire the cattle panel.
And copper is valuable. So I think it's a very nice
probably not
gift.
that valuable out in the garden, but
It's heavy.
yeah, this was a very nice gift.
Thank you, if you're watching, Alan.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe if I get a taller shepherd's hook for the impatiens in that spot, that we could hang this and hang them from that. It'd be very pretty.
So this is our one prop for today.
And how much we were talking about today relied on props.
Mm-mm.
We looked at what we had done this week, and it's like, well...
It's not a very prop heavy.
There's not much to talk about. The tomatoes come in from the garden, but everyone knows what a tomato looks like.
Unless we brought over our little caterpillar chrysalis.
You can't see them.
No.
They're hanging on a milkweed leaf and they're green.
You could pick them up and show them, but we don't want to disturb them.
Yeah, I did see a friend of ours had posted that her grandchildren had these monarch chrysalises, and they had tied sewing thread around the top of them and hung them up so that the butterflies could come out. I think that's a really good idea. Because I've been scratching my head. You can't leave the chrysalises in the jar the way they are. For one thing, the milkweed leaf is going to collapse over the next couple weeks. And I can't just lay them on the ground in the butterfly tent. The butterflies, if you do that, they come out and they drag their wings on the bottom and they can get hurt. So glad to have a solution for that.
So our Torah portion.
Speaking of winged
creatures. So I read half the Torah. I think it's a double Torah portion this week because it was
long.
6 chapters long. So we got halfway through it. We got as far as the clean and unclean animals. And it was fun because I was quizzing the girls. Okay, is this clean? Is that clean? What were some of the things I asked? Are octopus clean?
Yeah.
Are ravens clean? Are turkeys clean? They got everything right.
They knew most of it.
They know clean from unclean. I tricked them with one. I said are bass clean? I don't think they know what a bass is. And they said no. Like, aha, fins and scales. It is.
It is clean.
So they don't know their fish that well. But we were reading through, and we noticed that each one of the categories of animal, you got land animals, you've got flying animals, insects, and sea animals. Sea creatures are all given. They're all given descriptions of reasons why you don't eat these creatures. There's like identifiers.
God gave a standard.
Right, except for one, the birds. It never gave an actual description of why certain birds are unclean and certain birds are clean.
You almost have to just kind of try to surmise or guess why some are clean and why some are unclean.
And it seems like it just says all birds are clean except for these, and it goes through a long list of birds that are not clean to eat. Among which there's the raven,
the pelican, the vulture,
owl,
the hoopoe, the osprey.
Owls are definitely not clean to eat.
Flamingo.
Seagulls, not clean.
Well, however, we think that's what these birds are, but it was interesting. I happened to be looking something else up, and I stumbled across, oddly enough, it was on Wikipedia talking about kosher animals. And it was pointing out that the Hebrew names for these birds are extremely obscure, to the point where even Hebrew speakers today do not know for sure which bird we know of today by different names corresponds with this nearly 3,000-year-old list of forbidden birds.
Now, the Septuagint has been helpful in interpreting them.
Apparently, the Septuagint translated into Greek what the understanding at the time. That's also a very ancient version.
So the Septuagint is an ancient Greek version of the Bible that was translated a long, long time ago.
Before Jesus
came, yep.
So what we read was that the Septuagint shed some light, but some of the Greek terms, some of the Greek words, could be a couple of different birds that we would recognize today. So basically, God said, all birds are clean except this list of unclean birds. But it's very difficult to tell what the unclean birds are in the list he gave. So I was always curious that the Jewish people had a tradition of they don't eat birds that they don't have a very long-standing understanding. They don't have a very long-term understanding, have been eaten by their people for a long time.
So they take a list. They take a look at the list of all the unclean birds and find something in common with them all.
They've done that.
And they say this is what God is describing as attributes of an unclean bird, and they apply that to the whole genre of.
No, it's even more restrictive than that.
Really?
They say if we don't have evidence that our ancient forefathers ate this bird, we're not
That's
going
not
to eat it
reliable,
either.
though. I mean, you should go off of the word and not just tradition of
But
what
they
we've always
can't.
done.
That's the problem. If you take this list seriously and you say, God said, do not eat this bird, but you can't figure out from the description what the bird is,
Yeah.
their solution has been, we're going to rely on the memory of generations to know what a clean bird is and an unclean bird. And the only exception to that is the turkey.
The turkey. Yep.
The turkey is one of the only exceptions to that rule, in that they have no generational memory of their people having eaten turkey. But people in America decided turkey is clean to eat.
Apparently, chicken also was not eaten very frequently in first century.
But there are some ancient passages talking about flocks of chickens that were eaten.
And doves were known to be clean.
Doves are known to be clean.
And doves and chickens are very closely related.
Well,
in some ways.
Quail and chickens are more closely related.
And we know they ate Egyptian quail.
There's some debate about ducks.
That's the other debate.
Whether plant-eating ducks are.
So we discovered that the birds are not quite as clear-cut as some of the other animals or types of animals as far as what clean and unclean are. But don't eat an owl. Don't eat a seagull.
Well, generally speaking, their thought was that carnivorous birds should not be eaten. However, chickens are pretty carnivorous. They'll eat small mice. They'll eat.
What I read is that if they take their prey and eat it off the ground, like it's not just that they eat meat, it's that they capture their prey and take it to a spot and then eat it. Like owls do that.
But this is all a guess.
It is a guess, but that's what one of the things they see in common with the animals that are unclean. The birds.
God did not set a standard. So men, because we hate blank spaces in our understanding,
blank spaces,
tried to come up with the standard that God did not say. They're trying to quantify it for him. Well, God clearly had a standard, so what was it? It's interesting, though, to me, that he gave the standard for the other three classes of creatures, the sea creatures, the land mammal or the land animals, and the bugs, but he would not give a definition for the birds.
Well, my interpretation is that all birds are clean, except for this list.
The trouble is, if you take clean and unclean seriously and you can't translate that list, it now becomes very dicey.
But it seems apparent that the birds that are on the list are birds that we would not there's no tradition whatsoever of eating. Most societies don't eat owls.
Well, one of the birds in question is the house sparrow.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
One of the translated words, Greek words, could be house sparrow, or it could be something else. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was an osprey, or it was a bird of prey. So
osprey seems to fit with the other ones a lot more accurately. A house sparrow is...
House sparrows are very carnivorous.
But
They're hunters.
But I don't think carnivorous by itself is what determines it.
It's hard to know because God did not give a standard.
Well, you think about an eagle or a vulture or a hawk or an owl or a flamingo.
But remember that we are guessing that these ancient words translate to those animals.
That's true. And we are also going off of a long-standing tradition of birds that we do eat and birds that we don't eat.
For instance, the word that was used that's been translated to be vulture, I think it's pronounced ka'at, which means to vomit.
What is that supposed to mean?
Because vultures will do that when they're scared. They'll throw up on things.
I didn't know that.
So it's
suspected
strongly that word means vulture, but it's not known for sure.
And how are we ever going to know?
Well, I wouldn't advise eating a vulture anyway.
Hey, as long as turkeys are clean. I mean, if turkeys turn out to be not clean, then that's a serious issue. I've heard some people suggesting that chickens are not clean.
And ducks.
Ducks are a little bit more debatable, but chickens, turkeys...
Well, as far as we can tell, they're not on the list of unclean animals, unless one of those obscure ancient words refers to chicken, and we just don't know it because it was naming the bird with the red comb on its head, which would be a lot clearer. But it was an interesting study in language. And we take it for granted that all those English words printed in our Bible are clearly translated from the ancient text. And it says this here, and so we translate it to that here, and we've got the list.
Think about the massive power that translators have in their grasp.
It's pretty sobering.
I mean, they have incredible power. They have the power to... You're relying on people you've never met. You don't know anything about them. You don't know anything about their background, their beliefs, their anything. And you're relying on these people to transmit the original language to your language. So when you read it, you can clearly understand what they're saying in your language. You're assuming that they're clearly transmitting what they're reading into your language. Yeah. And I think that people feel more comfortable looking at multiple versions and putting them all side by side and saying, well, now we have a multitude of witnesses who all agree that the original language in English is saying something along the lines of this. However, there are certain passages, especially in the New Testament, where it's not accurate. It's not accurate at all.
Or at least when we've looked at it, we've said, now, how could this be said when it totally contradicts what got said over here?
Exactly.
And then you go back painstakingly and you look at it one word at a time and you realize this is nowhere near as clear cut as this version I was just reading of the Bible makes this sound. That list of unclean birds in the Bible, when you hear it read off on the Bible's tape that we have, or
it's
when you
clear.
read the Bible, it looks perfectly clear. Don't eat this animal, this animal, this animal, this animal, this animal. You would never know the struggle that goes into trying to determine what in the world those animals were, what those birds were.
It seems to me that if the original texts were more widely available and we were more widely educated to read these texts for ourselves, that a lot of this would be settled a lot easier.
Or
because you'd have a multitude of people, and then maybe it'll just lead to more controversy.
Or
but at
it
least
would remain unsettled, and we would be willing to acknowledge that this is unsettled.
That's true. Yeah, people don't like blank spaces.
They do not.
Everybody
like
wants
saying,
the blank
I don't
spaces
know.
filled in so that you could say, you never have to say, I don't know. But sometimes it's better to say, I don't know, and leave that blank space until further evidence presents itself.
And I actually think that in this case, I had not understood before why the Jewish people had this tradition of, well, kosher is only something that we've known to eat before. Well, now I have a little more sympathy with them.
Because they don't have much else to go off of.
And they feel like, well, God told us something very specific, but we're not exactly sure what he told us here.
Well, when it comes to birds, I sort of feel the same way. But it's just a feeling. It doesn't mean it's right. But we have a tradition of eating turkey. It's traditionally considered clean to eat. It's a clean bird. It seems strange to declare it unclean. Same thing with chicken.
As far as we know, it's not listed in the list of unclean birds.
Right, same thing with chicken. I mean, if somebody came along and gave very definitive evidence to say that chickens are not clean and here's why, and it was compelling, that would be a totally different scenario.
I keep yawning.
It'd be tough to give up chicken, but I would. Because, okay, I'm convicted in my own mind. God says this is not clean to eat. My goodness, we've been off on this big time.
Now, where I do have a bit of an argument is people who keep kosher have also carried this over to animals, which God gave a very clear standard to. So, for instance, the largest land animal that chews its cud and has cloven hooves, which is the standard God gave for determining a clean animal, is a giraffe.
Mm-hmm.
But many people who keep strict kosher would never even think of eating giraffe because there's no record of someone having
traditionally
eaten it before.
Yeah. I'd eat a giraffe, though, because it has split hooves and it chews the cud.
Today you'd get in all kinds of trouble for other reasons if you killed the giraffe to eat it, but the giraffe should be clean to eat. So there's that. I would
maybe someday there'll be giraffe farms, just like there's beef farms.
I have more of a problem with people who look at a clear-cut standard. Excuse me. Look at a clear-cut standard.
I think this is our cue to call it a night. It's about 45 minutes.
They look at a clear-cut standard like cloven hooves and chewing the cud and say, but we don't know anyone who's ever eaten that before, so we're not going to eat it.
Right.
It's way different with those birds.
Now, we actually don't eat duck very often.
I've never eaten duck.
I don't think I've ever had duck before. It's just not a bird that we have access
it's not
to.
available.
Oh, I guess we could if we were starving. We got ducks in a pond or whatever, but
What about geese?
What about Canadian geese?
Got a ton of those around.
I've heard they're not very
I've
good
heard
tasting.
they're not very good to eat.
But technically they're clean, right?
No, technically we have no clue because we don't know what those names are.
As far as we can tell, it's not on the list of unclean birds.
Anyway,
with that,
we're rambling.
We're rambling now. With that, we say good night, and I hope you found our discussion interesting, and congratulations for making it 45 minutes. Round of applause. Excellent. We were talking about laundry and mowing the lawn and car explosions. And
Okay.
all right. Say goodnight, Lauren.
Good night, Lauren.
Bye.